That feels good. All right, just got the bike all cleaned up. She is fast, efficient, and quiet. So in this video, we're gonna talk to you about how you can do the same. Gonna give you some pro tips throughout, make life easy on you. We're gonna talk about what lube to use based on science, but also balanced with real world application and longevity. And then we're also gonna talk about some other things like what you can do and how to clean your bike when you don't have a water source, like a spigot or a hose. Just some quick tips and tricks that'll really help you along the way. And again, keep your bike running like a pro. So let's look back and talk through it. All right, first things first, let's get rid of anything on the bike that we don't want to get wet. So take off the flat kit, take off the Garmin or the Wahoo or whatever it may be. Let's use a dummy hub here too. So first tip of the day, just a dummy hub. It just replaces the rear wheel axle so that your chain can run around something. Oh, you know what, before I do that, here's another little tip. Shift down into the cassette. So there, I'm gonna shift down into the second gear at the bottom, and that keeps it in line with the dummy hub so that it doesn't want to pull off the dummy hub. So that's tip number one. And the benefit here of the dummy hub is that it allows you to just really get things super clean, and you can get into all these little spaces, and then you can clean your chain real well without making a mess. And also, if you have disc brakes, keeps your disc from getting contaminated. So really easy, just slide it right in place. And these are only about 10 bucks. You can buy them at your local bike shop or online, and really beneficial. Okay, so we got that in place, running good. Let's talk about first, how often should we do this? So typically about every 200 or 300 K, because that's when the lube starts to break down, and also you start to get gunk buildup, and really you're wasting watts with a dirty drivetrain. In addition to, by then you're probably getting dirt on your bike, and we know a clean bike is a fast bike, right? A little psychological benefit there, but it helps. The only difference is maybe if you're inside, you can probably get away every couple weeks maybe. You could probably get away with doing it less often. But during the warmer months, when you're riding outside on a regular basis, every couple 100 K. And so for some of you, that may be every ride. It may be once a week, it may be every couple weeks even. The other way to tell is if you start hearing your chain, or you hear squeaking or grinding, or you can look and see physical dirt or grease buildup or anything like that, definitely time to get it clean. Why? First and most important reason is just it's going to make your bike work better and last longer. You're going to find little problems before they become big problems. And the second, and really almost a similar, just as important reason, is more efficient. It's been tested that about 5 to 10 watts of loss from a dirty drivetrain. So, you know, you have a dirty ride or ride in the rain, or even just go a couple of rides without having to refresh this thing, and you're probably losing 5 to 10 watts in the drivetrain. And I know you guys all work way too hard to waste those watts. So let's keep this thing clean, keep it running well, and keep it efficient. So no surprises pop up on your race weekend, no mechanical issues, okay? Let's talk about if you're at a race to that point. If you're traveling, what happens if you don't have a water source, or you have a race recon that's rainy, or you're just maybe on a coastal area and you have lots of sand on the road, or you ride through some dirt, whatever it may be. You still want your bike clean and race ready for race weekend, but you're traveling alone. So since most of us don't travel with professional mechanics, what you can do is just have a little goodie bag here, and this is just a little travel bag. And what you can see in here is I just have all the necessities in little travel containers. So there's my lube, and here is my I actually use car wash, but you can use, again, any kind of detergent. Here's the degreaser, just a rag to wipe everything down, and then I use Tri-Flow, and then a nice little brush that you can use to brush off your chain and keep everything clean, okay? Here's your water source. Just use your water bottles. Literally fill up a couple water bottles from your hotel bathroom or wherever you're staying, and you can just literally drip this across the bike, across the drivetrain. It's everything you need. You'll probably need a couple water bottles to do the drivetrain, maybe 3 or 4 if you're doing your whole bike, and then you'll be good to go. What if you live in an apartment or a condo and don't have a water source? About 15 or 20 bucks at your local hardware store, and you have a water source. Another little pro tip here, you put warm water in here along with your detergent. Actually, sorry, don't put detergent in here. Put warm water in here, and it actually helps break down the grease and debris even faster to kind of when it mixes in with your detergent. So good tip there, especially useful on a cold day. But that's what you would use if you travel. Then if you're at home, of course, we have a hose here and an air source that we're going to use to work with today. I like to use obviously a bike stand. If you don't have a bike stand, just lean up against a wall. Leave both tires on, lean it up against the wall, drive side out. Make sure you can spin the cranks freely without your pedal hitting the wall, and then you go to work, okay? But here's where we start. Simple Green. It's my degreaser of choice. You can really use whatever you want. I like this because it's cheap and it'll also biodegradable. So we start here just on the drivetrain, and I'm literally just going to coat the whole drivetrain. And then I'm going to spray a little bit on the chain rings. You don't have to be too concerned about getting it into the bearings because they're all packed with grease. So as long as you're not crazy with it, no issues there. Let's get a little more. And now I see it starting to drip and carrying some of the dirt with it. So we're going to let that soak in for a minute, and then we're going to address the wheels. So we've taken the wheels off, and I like to start with the rear wheel because I'm going to use a little more degreaser on the cassette. And then we can set that to the side. And then, grab the nylon brush. And this is just a $1 nylon brush. Keep your paint brushes at home. A lot of times you'll see World Tour mechanics use the paint brushes and then these little cut-off bottles. They're doing 7 bikes at a time, and they do their bikes every day. A paintbrush isn't going to cut it for you. Get a nylon, stiff bristle nylon brush. It works really, really well. And then keep the bottle here because you're only doing 1 bike, right? So you don't need to fill up a whole half bottle, cut it off, and get all fancy looking. Do what works best. So here, now I wet this down. A little degreaser on the brush helps. And then we just go through and wipe the cassette. So, and I'll just work around the cassette. And if you do this often enough, you don't have to get too crazy with it. And that's all it takes. If you've gone too long and you have some grit and grime and down, you can use a gear brush and get, we'll go this way, and get down in between the gears. But if you stay on top of it, you don't need anything like that. And then we're gonna take a soft bristle brush. Here's the key, it's just really, really soft. Get that wet. And then here I like to go around the tire because that gets in between the spokes really easily. And I can do the hub here. Get inside between the spokes really easily without having to put my hand in between there. And then I'll go back behind it with the rag. And here we actually get the tire itself and the rim and for me, the braking surface because I have rim brakes. If you have disc brakes, this is fine to get soapy water on there. And then go over the tire. Every time you do this, you should always be checking your tires, and that gets any debris or dirt, and after you're done, you can inspect this tire thoroughly. Make sure there's nothing stuck in there that's going to work its way in and cause a flat. And then we're done with that tire, so we can rinse it off, get the degreaser off of that cassette. And don't worry about spraying too hard in here too. GCN did a really great video a while back, and they actually took a pressure sprayer and sprayed it right into hubs. Actually, I think they're using a bottom bracket. And you'd be surprised how much abuse it took, and it really didn't show it. So don't stress on that too much. And then we'll move on to the next tire. Let's rinse it off first. Oh, let's get the brush, get in between those, in between the spokes like I talked about last time. Just an easy way to do that. Now we'll get the rag out. And we'll rinse that off. And I like to keep my tires close, and you're gonna get some drippings off the bike of that later. We're not gonna worry about that. We're gonna dry it all together. Now the degreaser on the chain has had a while to soak in. So we're just gonna rinse all that off, spraying underneath, right here on the hose. And that's just kind of like an initial cleaning. And I clean the drivetrain first. You don't wanna get your bike all clean and then clean the drivetrain and get a bunch of junk back on the frame, right? So that's why we start with the dirty part first. So now we'll go another round of degreaser. And then a little, oops, let me show you the chain cleaning device. I'll give you a close-up of that. So you can kind of see it just has gears and these are little nylon brushes in here. It just kind of gives you a good initial cleaning. And then you can go back with the nylon brush to finish up any detail that you want. I like to spray a little degreaser in here. And it literally just clamps around the chain like so. Hopefully you can see this on video. And then I hold it in place, and then I work backwards, and it's just cleaning off all those little nylon bristles are going to work. And then let's get back. No, I'll try not to do that. Get the chain back on where it belongs. I'll hold my hand got out of line, which is why that jumped. And then sometimes I'll shake it just to get the water and the degreaser on there. And that's already looking way, way better. So that was kind of the good initial cleaning. Then we'll rinse that off. Now, we'll go back for the detail cleaning. I'm very detail oriented, so we're gonna get in every little nook and cranny, get this thing nice and clean so we know it's really efficient, not wasting any watts. All right, that looks good to me. Now let's rinse it off. Now our chain is clean. Here comes the toothbrush. Toothbrush really helps you get here, for example, in the pulley wheels. A lot of times grease or lube will get caked up, and dirt here will get caked up, maybe around your derailleur, some areas that you really want to pay fine attention to or detailed attention to. And then just get all those areas. That looks pretty good. All right, so now that we got that, we start on the frame. Let's rinse this off. Just rinsing off any initial dirt so you're not grinding dirt into the frame. Just getting the loose stuff. Then we'll take the soft bristle brush and go over all the little, again, nooks and crannies. Now we're done with the little parts in between, and we'll hit the frame, the handlebars with a clean wash rag. And that's it. We're done. Let's rinse her now. Now at this point, once you have everything clean, if you don't have an air compressor, you can just throw your wheels back on, take it off the stand, or if you're at home leaning it against a wall, put everything back together, bounce it, spin the dry train a few times, work some of that water out, then just let it sit outside or sit in the sun or indoors and just let it dry. You want it to be fully dry before you apply any lubricant because we don't want to trap that water inside. We want it to be completely dry, then we can apply our lube. We'll talk about that here in just a minute once everything's dry. But for me, I have the luxury of having an air compressor. So what I'm gonna do is just take this nozzle and I can blow out all the little areas where water might get trapped in. The brakes, the derailleurs, the headset, the hoods, all that. Just all those areas I can blow it out, and then I'll go back over it with a clean microfiber cloth just to dry off the frame and any last little bits. Then I still let it sit for about 10 minutes so it can completely dry out, depending on the weather, of course. And then I'll come back and apply the lubricant in the areas where I want. So we'll talk about that here in just a minute. Okay, let's talk about lubricants. The bike is dry, now we're ready to lube it and get riding. So let's talk about what we should use and why. So I'm going to reference a chart from Friction Facts I'll show in just a bit, but first let's talk through some examples. Anything with aerosol, get rid of it. It's slow. Let's talk about wax-based lubricants. Now, Friction Facts in 2013 had a very extensive research about various lubricants, and this was one of the ones that tested fastest, Squirt. However, in practice, it works really, really well initially, but in practice, as you continue to ride, it starts to build up and get gunky. And attract dirt, which means it gets slower. The other thing too is that it's extremely hard to clean off. I literally, when I tried it, had to get pipe cleaners and get in between each link to clean it out. So these are fast really, really early on, but they don't last a long time, and they get slow in a hurry. So get rid of those. Rock and Roll Gold, also another thing that tested well, and this is extreme for off-road uses. So again, initial testing on these is really, really good, but you just get a constant outflow of oil or whatever their kind of base lubricant is. It continues to work its way out the chain, so all it does is attract more dirt and makes your chain slower. Again, really good initially, but longevity, it gets dirty and gets slower. Let's talk about what I use and why. WD Wet 40 for the chain, and then I use Tri-Flow dropper bottle for all the bearings, for the bushings, and then the rear derailleur pulley wheels. And so I don't use this on the chain, but use this around the bike because it's very, very lightweight. It works really, really well. For the chain, I use WD-40 wet lube in most applications. However, here in Colorado, if I'm mountain biking in an off-road scenario, it's really, really dusty, I use a dry lube for that. But for road applications, as well as wet or muddy or just kind of typical mountain biking, the wet lube works really, really well off-road also. The advantages of this, it lasts a long time, it works really, really well, it's fast, and it's easy to clean off, which is a often overlooked scenario. So when you clean your bike, you don't want to have to sit there with a pipe cleaner and go over it 5, 6, 7 times. You want to be able to clean it, have it come off easy, be able to reapply it, and then off you go. What this compares to, so I'll go back to the Friction Facts test, and if my editing skills are up to par, I'll put a screenshot in right now so we can take a look at that. What we see here is Morgan Blue Race Oil, and if you go into the World Tour, any World Tour team, most World Tour teams who don't have an obligation, a sponsor obligation to a chain lube, you're probably going to see a bottle of Morgan Blue Race Oil. Here in North America, it's not really available. It's more of a European thing. So what's the equivalent here in North America? WD-40 wet lube. It works really, really well. It's extremely effective, and I've used it for years and years and years, and it's fast. Okay, so that's what I recommend for most applications. Again, really dry, dusty conditions. Maybe if you're a gravel rider, go with WD-40 dry lube, and then we're using a Tri-Flow dropper bottle for a lightweight lubricant. And really, you could use this around your bike too, but I just like to use something different. It's a little lighter weight, but you could use this if you needed to too on the brake bushings and the rear derailleur pulley. So here's how the Morgan Blue tested. I'll show you the chart again here. It tested really, really well. Now, if you're a marginal gains type individual and you want to get an extra watt, what I would recommend is UFO drip for like race day scenarios. So that could be a one-off event. Maybe it's an Ironman, maybe it's a time trial, or maybe it's something to that effect where you just want that extra watt, and literally it's about an extra watt over this. But it's expensive, and that's the deal. And it's a little harder to apply, a little more maintenance heavy, but it's still faster than wax. It lasts longer than wax, and it's easier to clean off. So think about those things. UFO drip, if you're looking for that extra watt, this is what I'm going to use most of the time. That's what I recommend you guys use as well, and let's show you how to apply that now. Okay, so here we are back outside. Grab my rag and grab my lube, and what I always look for is the master link. So here we are right here, and I'm going to start on the master link, and basically we're looking for about 1 drop per link. So hopefully you can see here, and oops, and we just start squirting a little bit. And when that master link comes back around, we can stop, spin it a few times, let it work in. Now the trick here, spin it a handful of times, let it work in, and then wipe off the excess. We want the lube down between the pins and rollers, not on the outside. Anything on the outside is just going to attract dirt. That makes your drivetrain slow. So we're going to spin it. I can already see it working its way out, and it's bringing some black stuff that was left in there that I couldn't get with the hose and the degreaser. And we're going to let that work out. Now I'm going to start wiping it down. And so I'm going to do this a couple of times until I don't see any black stuff coming back out and I don't see any lube on the outside of the chain. We know it's worked its way in. Now here's the key. Here's the pro tip on this stuff. For the next 1 to 2 rides, after your ride, get your rag. As soon as you finish, get your rag, wipe it down. If you do that once or twice after the initial application, you won't have to have any black stuff working its way out. Your cassette will stay clean, your chain will stay clean, your chain ring will stay clean, and your drivetrain will stay efficient. Now, you'll feel, per my earlier comments, you will feel and you will probably see when you need to clean your bike again. So, but this keeps your drivetrain really, really clean, and it is only a few minutes worth of work, about 30 seconds worth of work after your next few rides, and you're good to go. Okay, so that's the chain done. Now we'll take our Tri-Flow drop bottle, and here's where I go with that, is anywhere there is basically a something that moves on the bike. So it could be a bushing or a joint. So for example, here there's a little rubber thing. The rubber things between the joints are called bushings. And we'll make sure those are lubricated so they stay working well and they stay moist so they don't dry out on us. And then I do the pulley wheels, and again I have the wheel out so it's really easy to access the back here. And I put those right where the bearings are, let those work in, and this lower pulley I'll hit from the other side too. I can't access the upper pulley. Wipe off any excess so we don't attract dirt. And then if we're being extra, if we're going the extra mile, so to speak, I'll put it between all the joints around the derailleur, both front and rear, so that it continues to function and work smoothly. Again, wiping off any excess. Let's make sure I haven't forgotten anything. That's it. Recently torqued all my bolts, so I don't need to go back through that, but if you haven't torqued your bolts in a while, I encourage you to maybe loosen them up and then re-torque them down to factory spec. Make sure they're working well. Other than that, I'll put my wheels back on and take it for a little test spin, make sure everything is shifting as I want, and we're ready to go ride. No races this weekend, but ready to throw down on that group ride tomorrow. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions or if this any clarification that you want, just leave comments below or just text me or message me. Thanks. See you next time.